scorched, laid to waste. What was not dead was dying. Chaos reigned. For here, monsters roamed free.
Can you not tell this story like I wasn't just there?
Zeus.
I was literally just there 2 weeks ago, and even if I wasn't, though I was, I'd be listening to your story for days.
It's called dramatic effect.
It's called Where's My Skip Button?
Fine. Cue title.
Ubisoft Quebec presents the video game formerly known as Gods and Monsters.
Hello, and welcome to a brief look at Immortals, Fenyx Rising, the awesome open-world RPG adventure set in classical times coming to gaming consoles near you on December 3rd, 2020. A thank you to Ubisoft for inviting me to their capture event.
It is actually pronounced Ubisoft.
The French.
And a thank you once again to my returning demoist Marianne, who made sure I got all the good things on camera during my remote play session of 2 hours. Immortals is currently a work in progress, so please do take that in mind when watching this video. First, let's address the name change, because I've got to be honest with you, I'm not a fan. Gods and Monsters, you knew what you were getting, unless you confused it for the 1998 film of the same name, or the Lana Del Rey single, which is perhaps why the name was changed. But I did like it. It was clear, simple, and reflective of the content. Very Clash of Titans. Immortals Fenyx Rising is a bit of a weird one. It feels like a spin-off of an Evangelion title or similar, or like Ghost of the Shell. Some odd anime feature that's potentially part of a larger series. Are we going to get multiple Immortals titles? Is that where we're going? We do know that Ubisoft loves a franchise, Tom Clancy, but it's probably a little bit over-eager if that is part of the reasoning. Speaking of, if there is indeed a Prince of Persia reveal at this ubiforward, as rumours suggest, and this video is obviously drafted in advance, so I am guesstimating here, I have got an 8-page script that I keep having to change based on rumours, which can finally see the light of day. So stay tuned for that. I'll put the video out at some point anyway, but it would be nice to have like a final version that definitely had Prince of Persia coming back. For those of you that clocked Gods and Immortals last year at E3 2019, and were as curious as I was, you will be wondering why the long radio silence. Why have we seen nothing since the reveal trailer, which did give us Breath of the Wild vibes, but not really anything else? What's been going on? Well, alongside the pandemic and obviously the ongoing multitude of sexual allegations the studio is beginning to address, they've been working on the game and going above and beyond their initial plans, reworking quite a lot of stuff. Immortals is now a fully souped up realisation, which unapologetically blends gameplay and progression elements of open world Zelda with the fantastic mythology of Assassin's Creed Odyssey and the over-the-top combat of Darksiders or Devil May Cry / Bayonetta. And I say unapologetically because alongside having a lot of similar features in-game we'll come back to, Ubisoft is pushing this game out to the Nintendo Switch. It is incredibly daring of them to come for Link on his own platform, but I am okay with this happening. I enjoyed Breath of the Wild a lot at launch, but I've got zero compulsion to replay it whatsoever, so I am dying for more of these games in the same vein. Welcome to the Golden Isle, a home of the gods, and it's under threat. You play as Fenyx, a Greek warrior with a red head of hair and wings for days, shipwrecked on the island and prophesied as the saviour of the gods and the Golden Isle, for it has fallen into the clutches of the evil titan Typhon.
Come, mortal, and face your real past, me!
Typhon, a rather ugly Balrog wannabe, has escaped from his eternal cage and is back to wreak havoc upon the Pantheon, especially Zeus, who imprisoned him in the first place. Now, if you are listening to this and you're thinking, oh, that's the plot of Disney's Hercules, do not start with me. I grew up with that film and also the original myths, and Disney didn't really invent anything other than butchering certain elements of that. It's one of the major tales of the formation of the Olympic Pantheon, and it does make perfect sense to use it as a base plot for a game that is about meeting and helping different Greek deities. Within the game, there are 7 distinct regions, each one tied to a god, and each region and god must be returned to full power to help rebalance the odds against Typhon. The gameplay you're seeing on screen is from Hephaestus' zone, the Forge Lands, and that's reflected through the environment, puzzles, and lore presented to you, hence the rocky, volcanic, metal kind of vibe, since he was the blacksmith of the gods. I'm quietly curious to see more and how this will be implemented through the gameplay. Gameplay, as per the usual presentation, has 3 core pillars behind it. It's never 4, is it? Or 2, or like 7. It's always 3. Firstly, Ubisoft wanted a unique mix of traversal, fighting, puzzles and exploration within Immortals. It's something they're relatively good at in open world games like Assassin's Creed, and I felt that was pretty accurate for this game too. You may argue it's not so unique as per the Zelda argument, but I would like to point out that Zelda stole half of its concepts from Shadow of the Colossus and has 19-ish main games under its belt, so I think being unique long left the building for either of those franchises, and instead we should just enjoy being able to do stupid shit like flying off a cliff and hitting a Minotaur in the face with an oversized magical hammer, and then eyeing up a physics-based puzzle 2 hills over. Secondly, on the pillars front, the devs wanted the journey to be as challenging and rewarding as the destination. Why else would you play it? Puzzles are sometimes hard. They come in a variety of forms, including Zelda-type physics puzzles at points, but there's also elements of Prince of Persia in there. Ridiculous obstacle courses with jumps, fireballs and spikes, timing it all up, getting across safely. I'll come back to this in more detail shortly, but the general feedback from me was yes please and thank you very much. Finally, the last of the sacred developer pillars for Immortals is gameplay that's easy to understand and fun to master. Again, it's not rocket science, but it is something that people do tend to forget or overcomplicate in their eagerness to make a game with bells and whistles, especially when it comes to combat. I hope this mentality will extend to accessibility and so forth too. More information to follow from Ubisoft at a later date, but I do believe that colorblind mode was mentioned as a future feature, so fingers crossed on a diverse range of accessibility tools. Combat is vibrant and fun. It's not ground-based entirely, it's acrobatic as well, over the top aerial movements showcasing wings and weaponry. Mobs take the form of a wild and wacky range of monsters from mythology, often appearing together. Harpies, minotaurs, three-headed dogs, cyclops, and the occasional dead hero if you really piss Typhon off. It's fast and colourful, and the range of enemies on show force you to take advantage of multiple godlike abilities based on your progression in the game, such as spikes from the floor, courtesy of Ares, wings of Daedalus for flying and gliding, a giant hammer from Hephaestus, and the batarang from Bruce Wayne. Sorry, I mean Apollo's arrows. These abilities all require use of your stamina bar, which I'll come back to in a bit, and they can be swapped out for others depending on your progression and your preference. For this build it was a specific moveset, but in the full game there will be multiple ways to tweak your loadout and your skill set to fit your playstyle. The UI and combat take heavy influence from Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, and I'm okay with that. It's been tried and tested, it has a fluid and tactile feel to it, which also makes combat fun but allows for challenge. Remember those pillars I mentioned a minute ago? All the usual suspects are in, parrying to reflect projectiles, separate buttons for light and heavy melee attacks, and of course a good old bow and arrow range system. Immortals Fenyx Rising has also included a stun mechanic, which is frankly somewhat necessary when confronting some of the larger fights or bigger boys knocking around in the world. If you fill up your opponent's blue bar by doing damage, they become stunned until the now yellow bar runs back down again, meaning you can use this time to your advantage, whether that's dealing with other enemies attacking at the same time or unloading further on the stun target whilst they're in one place. It's not a combat system that's reinventing the wheel, as with most things in this game, but it did feel smooth, comprehensive and fairly second nature by the end of the 2 hours. But as I said before, I am a fan of the Odyssey combat system, so I might be a little biased there. Immortals once again borrows from Odyssey and Origins, and again no complaints here. Experience points grant you levels, you can also get skill points in the world, both of which let you tweak your build by buffing moves or stats, combined with weapons, armour and cosmetic skins that you can also find throughout the world. There's a full-blown upgrade and crafting system. It basically just suggests there's going to be a decent amount of flexibility in individual playthroughs. This is something to come back to on launch, however, because 2 hours wasn't really enough time to be familiar with this aspect of the game. Past recognised that it was sharing a lot of Origins and Odyssey's features, which in itself does make me pretty hopeful, because I know from playing them that they did have an immense amount of range and flexibility in how you chose to play the game. What else have I got to mention? Oh, animal companions. That is also pretty Assassin's Creed, isn't it? You may have noticed in some of the gameplay this little guy helping out in combat. This is Phosphorus, and he doesn't do the conventional role of scouting like most Ubisoft birds. That's just a binocular setup for you directly. He does help you out in fights by diving at enemies. He's also got a special move you can set off with your stamina that turns him into Farah from Overwatch. Alongside Phosphorus and fast travel points you'll unlock as you progress through the game, Fenyx also has the use of a mount to get around the map, and if you don't like your starting mount, you can tame another. The process is fairly simple, possibly familiar. You just have to make sure you don't spook the horse, you approach it, you get on it, and away you go. Mounts appear to have some sort of tiered stamina system, but I couldn't say if that's based on rarity or a loyalty bonus at this point. I did forget to ask, but I did like that I could just wander out into the wild and find a new horse to change up my look. And I also liked that as I ventured forth into this strange and new world and started finding things beyond combat, I started seeing a little less Assassin's Creed and a little more Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I mentioned stamina previously in combat, and Assassin's Creed does utilise it for that feature, but in Immortals, stamina is also vital for other things: climbing, swimming, and using your wings to flap or glide across the map. If you run out of stamina mid-flight, you gently drop, ensuring you don't fall from the sky. Amusing considering the wings you're wearing were owned by the father of Icarus, and it is a nice, subtle alternative to the flailing desperately into your menu for food to prevent Link from plummeting to his death. It does mean parkour has something a bit extra to it, and more thought is required versus sprinting up a sheer cliff face as Cassandra or Bayek. And as a part of that, it does give you a sense of size and perspective of really being a human in a world of gods and monsters. See, that title did work! The world itself is absurd, and it's crammed with things to investigate. Get to a high place and you can use your far-seeing ability to look around, akin to Link's binoculars or whatever the fuck they were called. Alongside main quests, there's tons to check out. There's secret locations with hidden treasures, elite battles, cauldrons to brew potions at, think Breath of the Wild cooking, chests you can only unlock at a certain time of day, and there's so many puzzles, loads of puzzles. The puzzles are glorious. As I said previously, it's a nice mix of Prince of Persia obstacle timing based stuff and Breath of the Wild physics-based puzzles, and they're really salt-inducing, especially if you're the kind of person who can't do the seesaw in Fall Guys. You can find them in the general world itself. I spent half an hour doing one about constellations and got a really cool reward out of it, or you can venture forth into the vaults of Tartarus that are scattered around the map. There's a reason you'd spend your time with these puzzles. Not only are they satisfying to solve, there's that pillar of gameplay again, but they also reward you well. Vaults of Tartarus reward success with lightning bolts of Zeus that increase your stamina, and if you do the world puzzles, you can be rewarded with coins of Charon for spending in your skill points area, which obviously buffs those special moves you've got, or your output of damage, or your defense, etc. There's also ambrosia out there to collect to increase your health bar, so not only do you get rewards via the combat and questing, but by the exploration and puzzle solving. It's like a two-tier thing, and I love it a lot, because whilst I do love Assassin's Creed, the puzzles, I will admit, can be fairly flat and unvaried, and were never one of the franchise's strongest features, although I do like the riddles, they're cool. So I'm glad that Immortals turned instead to inspiration like Breath of the Wild. It adds another dimension to the game, and it makes perfect sense to utilise this kind of tone and feature when, much like Link, you're basically out adventuring on your own and powering yourself up for a final end battle. I only had time to see a select few of them, but within those puzzles, both above and below ground, or in the vaults, I saw a nice bit of variety and challenge, and I am excited for the full game and getting stuck into more of those puzzles. The combat as well was a lot of fun, super easy personally for me to pick up, and I felt like there's going to be people out there who are going to have a lot of fun tweaking those moves and creating something unique. So yeah, that's a first look at Immortals Fenyx Rising. I was really pleasantly surprised by what I saw, and I'm now super looking forward to December 3rd when I get to play the game in full. A thank you to all of you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do drop it a thumbs up, maybe check out some of the other videos on the channel from this year, and an extra special thank you to my patrons, including Liam Pillsbury, Rachel, Mark Fillan, Lottie Pierce, Lars Eric and Maid. thank you to you for your support. If you would like to know more about Patreon, there is a link in the video description. YouTube's ad revenue has sucked balls for the last few years, which is why I made the move over to Twitch for my full-time stuff. That's also in the video description, so if you want to see some Immortals in December, then don't forget to come and check it out, because we will be playing it live on camera. Thank you so much for all your support, everyone. I hope you're doing well and staying safe in 2020, and I'll see you again soon. Maybe with some Prince of Persia content. One day it'll be out, guys. One day. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon. Goodbye!
So you can just wave away whatever you want with narration. Zeus, a perfect father and husband, approves.
This might be a fantasy game, but even we have limits.